Welcome inside another edition of SVG's On the Gridiron series. We're taking you behind the scenes of what is, if not the, certainly one of the most unique seasons in the history of the National Football League. And there's fantastic individuals across the league making video magic under very unique circumstances. We're joined by two of them now. We're here to talk about the Minnesota Vikings, US Bank Stadium. We're joined by Bryan Harper, Vice President, Content and Production for the Vikes, and Allan Werthheimer, Director, Production Operations for the team. Gentlemen, fantastic to see you as always. Hope you both are doing well and the teams are staying safe. How's everything going?
Good to be back. Thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
Yeah, good to see you guys. So 1 week under the belt, you guys did have a home game at US Bank Stadium. Must have been really odd because that's one of the better, cooler home field advantages in the league right now at US Bank Stadium. So I was wondering if you guys, and Allan, maybe we'll start with you. Take us through what game day was like. Just how different was it? What safety protocols were in place for your crew? How different did the control room look? Just how different from any other game was Sunday like for you guys?
Yeah, it's really like nothing that I think I'll ever experience again in my career, and hopefully we never experience it.
Here's hoping, right?
Every crew member had an entry point that they had to walk through, a specific one, a specific path to get to the control room or camera well, wherever they were headed right off the bat. So they'd come through security with their mask on, mask required at our stadium, and most places now. And then they'd have to go through a temperature check, answer a couple questions, and then after that, they would go on their path, a direct path to where they needed to go. A couple protocols we put in place in the control room. We put the plexiglass between each workstation, so that way everyone has their own work area. So we got many of those upstairs in our control room. And then, the other thing is we actually, for all our camera people, we kind of gave them a kit to take with them to their cameras. So it was a pair of gloves, cleaning stuff for the camera, hand sanitizer. So each camera person would take these to their camera and it would be theirs for the day. Another thing we did is we passed out headsets in plastic bags. And then after the game, we told everybody to leave their headsets, at their station. And then we would come by, take them. We have a disinfector that we put the headsets into this device to clean them, and then when they come back for the next game, they'll be handed a bag again, a new plastic bag that with the clean pair of headsets. So those are some of the protocols we put in place. Like you said, it's obviously a weird time right now, less interaction with the crew face to face. Like we said, a lot of people usually come up to the control room as part of their first move just to say hello. Now it's go right to your camera and we'll talk to you on headset type thing.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Bryan, from your perspective, what kind of challenges does this present? Is it just an exorbitant amount of planning? I imagine it is. And how'd you feel about how the team adapted in its first experience with this?
The production team adapted very well. We had it put together. We did a fairly good job of communicating to people. It's going to be different. You're going to have things pop up. To Allan's point, specific paths. Keeping your distance, the panels between the seats, all of those things were actually, fairly easy in my opinion. The tough part was actually getting used to the environment. And no fans, no energy. Mm-hmm. All of those things I think trickle into anybody's position that has a role in game day. You can't shake that. So it was, for the first time, it was just, honestly, it's like the weirdest thing ever. And I'm sure, we'll get into some more about that as we go through the discussion here. But Allan and his team and those folks did a great job of preparing. I really don't think we could have been any more prepared than we were for something that was completely an unknown.
Yeah, for sure. Allan, what did you guys do different and special this year without the benefit of having those preseason games to get some quote unquote dress rehearsals under your belt? How'd you prepare differently for the live game experience to kind of get you guys ready for what week one might have been like?
Yeah, I think for us, we kind of did our show as normal as much as we could. So, we changed our pregame around a little bit. We were allowed to stream the first 45 minutes of our pregame show to our social channels. So we did a pregame show type with a person at the desk, analysis and things like that, stuff we never did in the past. So there was a lot of planning for that. Our producer Darius Smith headed that up, and it couldn't have been more of a success getting sponsors involved there. Since we don't have an in-game show really with no fans, we moved a lot of sponsors to that pre-game show. So we essentially filled 45 minutes of content prior to our what we call showtime, and that's the last 15 minutes before kickoff.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it was just a huge success. We got our cheerleaders involved, our skull line still involved. We pre-recorded those and played them back within the pregame show. So that was a huge success. Again, it's only been 1 week, but we've got a lot of positives back about it. And again, we were able to fulfill a lot of sponsorship in there. And we set up that show in a way where it would be like our video board show. If anyone's been to US Bank Stadium, we have our main video board, and then next to it, we call them the wing boards.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to replicate that in our stream. And it's essentially an L bar, but we treated the bottom of the L bar as an LED board, more or less. So we took things that we would usually do in stadium and just moved them to the stream to make good for all those sponsorships and keep them happy. And then the last 15 minutes, like I said, we treated that like a normal game day. We did our team intro, away team intro, national anthem, coin toss. So not much change there. And, for preparation for us, again, it was almost like a normal game. And we've done so many live studio shows that we were pretty well prepared for that pregame show. And then, once we got in game, it was we don't have fans. So there's not much to do in game other than try to motivate the players and try to get them hyped up for the game.
Mm-hmm.
So once the game started, it was a lot of music, tailored towards our players. Usually we tailor that towards our fans, change it up. We asked our players what they wanted to hear during the game. So that was helpful. And that, we also got some of our players' families involved. So whether that was a touchdown celebration or saying congratulations, Daddy, by Kirk Cousins' son, or cheering for him. And we noticed those had a pretty big impact on our player. They caught their attention. They would look up at the video board and you could tell it struck them. It was pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, that's very cool. Bryan, I'm curious from your take. I mean, you guys at US Bank Stadium do as good of a job, if not the best job possibly in the league, as far as like really, really creating a one-of-a-kind experience for your fans. How did you deal with that philosophical shift of this going from being a fan entertainment product to something totally different, which is maybe just kind of making your employees feel good, making the staff, making the game day, making the players feel something special? What's on the video boards for those of us, all of us who can't be in the building? And what was that shift mentally like for you to kind of adjust what the environment needed to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think the shift is still ongoing. Now we have a game under our belt, and so we know, how that went and what we can potentially, work on to make the next game at least a little bit better. Allan kind of touched on it a second ago. I mean, our audience is the players. I mean, that's who's there. We have zero fans. And I know some stadiums are having at least some fans. We didn't have any for our first game, and we won't for our second game. So you have the fans and you have the media. I mean, that's really your audience. So I'm sorry, the players and the media is the audience. So we've really focused on the player side of it. Like Allan said, doing the family reaction type videos. Music that is, that they like. Really, I mean, that there isn't a whole lot more that you can do with that situation. I'm sure we'll talk about crowd noise and the ambient track and so forth that the league has provided and the parameters that we have to operate between. It's a challenging, like all stadiums, when you have a big venue like that, it's challenging to control. The audio performance, and with no fans, that adds another layer of challenge there. So, it really was, just one of those things where through the game, we're trying to take as many notes as we can and figure out ways that we can impact it and make it a little bit better, in the coming weeks.
Yeah, for sure. Allan, Bryan set it up there. The murmur track, if you will, that's playing throughout all of the stadiums across the league. You guys are working with that. Are you? Is it basically just rolling with that, or are you guys enhancing it anymore? How are you guys playing it?
No, we literally took the track that the league provided us as we have to, and play it as long as it comes.
Just hit play.
Yep, in minus 70 threshold. That's what we got to hit for that track. I think we looked at a couple different options from a sound standpoint in the building, knowing that we got to play the curated audio track plus using PA announcer and a couple hype videos here or there.
Mm-hmm.
Our strategy was, well, we got to make sure the players can hear what we want them to hear, and that was the music, PA announcer, the referee mic. We have field speakers, so we pumped all that through the field speakers, and we actually kept our ambient noise track up in the arrays up top of our building. And then honestly, we are probably have maybe a quarter of our speakers on in the building, just because if we were to turn them all on, it would everything would bounce off of everything, and it just wouldn't be a good experience for the players or anybody who's actually there. So we went about that approach, and again, we're within the league rules on everything we're doing. It's a struggle when you got to play that track and then try to add more to it when we're limited about how high we can go with the decibel level.
Sure. Allan, real quickly, in regards to what you guys learned this offseason. This was obviously immensely unique offseason, starting really with free agency, but really heating up with unique workflows around the NFL draft. And then losing out on those real tactile opportunities that you have with fans at things like training camp and preseason games. Forced a lot of teams to try new things that they certainly never would have done before if they weren't kind of forced to. What do you feel you and the team has learned technologically, or have allowed yourself to do technologically under these circumstances, that are giving you things that you're doing now to enhance for fans who are dying for more stuff, but they literally can't come in the door?
Yeah, well, I think one thing that everyone has learned more about technology is what we're doing right now, Zoom calls, whether Microsoft Teams, FaceTimes and things like that. For a while, that was our bread and butter, is how we had to go about doing everything, virtual. We did a virtual draft party, which was probably our biggest success in the off season, from just the technically how we had to pull it off. Everybody was remote at that point. We had, I think, a producer on 2 phones at one point, talking to the talent, and then also talking to the production crew on another line. So conference calls along with, all these virtual rooms. That was probably the biggest, like I said, technical lift we pulled off. And then once we figured that out, I'd say it was fairly smooth sailing from there, as far as, all right, we set the bar on how to do this. And we continue to do, we call them happy hours, whether it was bringing former players in and sitting down and talking with them. So I think that was, when this all went down, that was the first major production we did, and it set the bar for what we could do based off the technology that we learned, during the draft. Things like that set us up for success. Later on, eventually, we were able to get back in the building and utilize our control room, which was a huge help. So then when training camp came around, this was the first year we started doing a daily live show every day from training camp after practice. It usually lasted about 15 minutes, but it was kind of a recap of the day, what people saw. Occasionally we would get a reporter's, take on what they saw at practice. Look, I think we all knew technology has come a long way, but I don't think anyone's really appreciated it till now, 2020, and just what you can do with it. And again, when this first hit, we were like, oh man, how are we going to do anything? And everyone was probably thinking that. And then it was just, I always say, hire people smarter than you, because they're going to be the ones that, help out. If you're not hiring people smarter than you, you're not doing your job. So I think luckily we hired some people that got us to where we are now. And then, back in March and April, and it was a phenomenal job by our team. And again, the things that we were able to pull off from a content standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. Creatively, Bryan, I'm curious from your perspective. Obviously, none of us want to be doing it this way, but we're playing the cards we've been dealt. What silver linings have you found? Has this experience over the past 5-6 months unlocked any parts of your marketing or content creation mind that maybe wouldn't have been had we not been forced to do it this way?
I mean, I think it really strips it down to the basics. You can get, when you have the technology. You can get crazy with your ideas in a non-pandemic situation, but you really went to the core of, hey, like no one's going to get to hear from our players without us, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we tell their stories? How do we introduce our fans to the rookies and the new signings and so forth? How do we tell the story about what's happening in the building with the limited access that you have, mind you? Really felt the, I guess, responsibility of this is the only chance that our fans are going to be able to get a peek of the purple. We had, Allan talked about doing the daily live show at camp. We were able to coordinate, kind of in the same way that we would do a preseason game, only without a broadcast truck. We were able to coordinate with our TV partner here in town, and we streamed one of the practices live on our platforms, but also simulcast it on our radio partner, KFAN, and our broadcast partner, KMSP, Fox 9 here in town. So you had the three-pronged approach. If you were looking at your phone or on the website, or wanted to watch it on TV, or wanted to listen to it on the radio, you'd basically get the same production. And we did the entire practice. It was the only one that we did that way, but it helped with replacement revenue. We were able to talk about it like, hey, this is the one chance that you're going to get to see the team before the regular season gets here. And so going through that process, it forced us to do some things that were maybe out of our comfort zone, that could potentially be, things that we do down the road. Like, well, I say that that's the only time that we're ever going to do that? I mean, probably not, because it was a huge success. We might kick off training camp every year doing that moving forward. It's the same type of deal. Like, people are getting used to this type of look. Like, that's not what we're going to want to do when we go, past the pandemic. But is there some type of concept? Allan mentioned the happy hour thing. Like, you can bring people in that you never would have a chance to bring in before by doing something like that. And we found ways to make that look really good, either through our studio, by having some of your talent in the studio and some of the guests on the screen. I mean, there's things you could do to like add to the possibilities, I guess is what I would say. So it's been inspiring just watching people have to think differently.
Mm-hmm.
Uncomfortable at first, very frustrating. You kind of have to get over that whole mindset thing. But man, once you're past that, to kind of when you're focused on, okay, here's the parameters or restrictions that we're having to work through. How are we going to still get the job done? Once you get to that point, that's when it's like, it's really cool to see the team come together and pull off some pretty cool things.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. It's also very, very inspiring to see the league come together, get back on time, which I think probably certainly surprised a lot of people. And that is through the effort of a lot of people across the league, specifically within your organization. I'll put you guys on the spot. Allan, who on your team, you've mentioned a few names along the way. Let's throw out some bouquets. Who deserves credit for you guys, besides from you two, of course? Who deserves, credit for helping you guys get to this point where we're a week in and the NFL season's rolling on?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's not the cliche thing, but a full team effort. Every producer editor that we have has had a role in this. My technical staff, engineer, and just the lifts they've pulled off. Again, the cliche is it's a team effort, but it truly was, and it stems even more from just our department with partnerships. We provide them content, them putting a partner on it, PR helping us out, getting players. Again, cliche, it starts from the top down. You start with, the ownership or COO and GM and coach, just, helping us fulfill these things that we need to fulfill and allowing us to take time with them during a pandemic, whether it's for an interview or just floating an idea by them or collaborating on, the stadium setup and how are we going to try to create a home field advantage. So, I can name names and it's pretty much, everyone in our Vikings Entertainment Network department, but it also stems just from other departments in the organization to, again, we got tasked with, all right, how do we save some revenue here? And it really was a group effort on how to do that. I'll let Bryan speak to that more if you want, but it just was a team effort. And I think if I start singling out people, I'd have to name everybody in our department.
Somebody would be knocking on your door saying, "Hey, yeah, remember me?" No.
I agree with Allan. It's hard to single people out because there's 30 people that had a role in helping us get there. The technical staff definitely gets an extra nod because they really had to get creative about how they were going to make stuff happen and do a lot of research and pull things together that might have been different than they had initially planned. But and then Allan's been great. He's been like a machine the whole time, just constantly working to get things done, been involved in helping to establish the protocols that wouldn't put us between a rock and a hard place. I'm sure you're aware of the tier system that we have at the facility and at the stadium. And, we did a good job of having a multifaceted crew that could do a bunch of different things. But now, the restricted areas may limit that person to only being able to do one of those things. So, having to really, broaden people's scopes, but then give them specifics has been a challenge. But yeah, I mean, everybody came together understanding that the number one goal in all of this is for people to remain healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we want to play the games. And if there's 100 things that you want to get done, those are the top two things. And if the other 98 things don't happen, but you get the top two things, that's a win. And everybody would take that. Right. So it's been an interesting, really growth opportunity for people to see how they kind of work their way through this and so forth, but not something we ever want to do again, to Allan's point earlier. And hopefully we get through this, just as a community, we get through this here in the coming months. And, I don't know that it ever goes back to what it was previously, so to your point, that's kind of why we're talking here. What are the things that are going to stay?
Sure.
But at least get back to some sort of normal where we can, be in the same room as each other, which is very limited opportunities to do that right now. So.
Yeah, here's hoping. All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much for being so generous with your time, sharing our expertise with our audience, and really, really appreciate that. Stay safe. Congrats on getting through week one. We wish you guys nothing but the best going forward the rest of the way. Thanks again.
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
All right. For more of the SVGs on the Gridiron series, just head on over now to sportsvideo.org.